Well, I hope everyone has read those first 9 chapters of Chronicles. Okay.
I fell asleep on it.
Tell the truth. How boring was that? I mean, it was like...
There's some nuggets in there.
There was. And it's amazing how there are a few nuggets there, but man, when you start reading the genealogies and those names, and it's like, oh, how long is this going to go on? And 9 chapters. But, as Roger said, there are some nuggets in there, aren't there? I mean, when you read through there, you think, wow, never thought of that. But as we discussed last week, what is Chronicles basically telling us? I mean, it's going through the genealogy and everything, but what is it? What's the basic reasoning for it?
Leading up to David?
It's showing us how basically the genealogy leading up to David, but it's showing us how God is faithful to those that are faithful to Him, and how those that fall away, there's problems. And all through, if you look at this, it's they're faithful, and then they're faithless. And they just kind of go back and forth, back and forth. And He's trying to give them meaning that, hey, you know, if you would just remain with me, things would be better. And yet, what happens? They don't. So in reading that, what was the nuggets that you found, Roger?
It was in chapter 4, verses 10.
Uh-huh.
It says, let me go up to 9. And Jabez was more honorable than his brother, and his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bear him with sorrow. And Jabez called on God of Israel, which is a prayer, God, saying, O thou wouldest bless me indeed, and enlarge my borders, that thy hand might be with me, and that thou wouldest keep me from evil, that it be not to my sorrow. And God granted him that which he requested.
Yep.
Wow, that was...
And that's commonly known as the prayer of Jabez. Was he faithful to God? I mean,
He tried.
even his name was painful, wasn't it? That's what that name means. Pain. But yet, he prayed the right prayer there, didn't he? How is that compared to when we read earlier in the chapters there of chapter 1, when it was talking about let's see, that was in... What was that? Oh no, in chapter 2, in verse 3. When it talked about Judah's firstborn was wicked in the sight of the Lord. And so what? The Lord put him to death. Same thing with Achan down there when he messed up. What happened to him? He was put to death. They were not doing things right, were they? Jabez was wanting to do things right. Even though it was a struggle, he still wanted. He prayed the prayer that, Lord, grant me.
He probably didn't want to be put to death this quick.
Well, I don't think anybody did. Honestly, I don't think anybody wanted to be put to death. But it's just that they got drug away by things. One of the things in the first chapter, it goes through all that, basically from Adam clear on through, and over there in verse 19, it was talking about 2 sons were born to Eber.
Which chapter?
In chapter 1. And Eber was basically came down through Shem. But Eber had two sons. One was named Peleg, because in his time the earth was divided. His brother was named Joktan. I think from what I could gather, that is Noah's great-grandson, Peleg. And when it says, and the earth was divided in his time, what do we think of there?
Flood?
Could be from the flood. At this very time is when the people all gathered together and said, let's build a tower to heaven. The Tower of Babel. And they started building it. And what did God say? Can't have this. And what did he do? He divided the people up. Now there are some that say this is actually also when, as scientists look at the world, they see how the continents have came apart. I mean, it looks like if you put it all together, it would all go together. There's a possibility that this might be the same time that the Lord, in separating these people, he put oceans between them so they could not get back together easily. If that be so, that would support scientifically when God separated and made the world into continents and different places at the time of that Tower of Babel. Which was kind of interesting to me because it says God divided it. Something to think about. So the first few chapters are the genealogy, and then it gets into in chapter 3, the sons of David. It gets into his lineage, and we've seen some of that when we were in Ruth. When it comes down through there. Remember, the first king was what? Who was he? Saul?
Saul, yeah.
Saul was the first king, and he was from the tribe of Benjamin. David was from the tribe of what? Judah. That's how, basically, God wanted the tribe of Judah to be where the king came from. So that's why the lineage comes down through David, through the tribe of Judah. And then eventually, as we go on through, what does that lead to? Christ. Clear on through that whole. So Christ is basically, you could say he's from the tribe of Judah also, right? Because it comes down through that lineage all the way through. Another little nugget that I thought was kind of interesting is in chapter 3, when it's talking about the sons of David, and verse 4, and these 6 were born to David in Hebron, where he reigned 7 years and 6 months. Then David reigned in Jerusalem 33 years. And these were the children that were born there. Isn't it amazing that David reigned in Jerusalem 33 years? And how long was Jesus on this earth? 33 years. That's kind of different, isn't it? How that... But as we go on through there, all these sons, and some of them are we recognize, some of them we don't really, because he had so many. But as we go on through, it's basically considered the royal line because it's of Judah. We looked at Jabez there in 4. In chapter 5, it talks of Reuben. Reuben was what? The firstborn of Israel. And what's another name for Israel? Jacob. Jacob and Israel, I think, were, I guess, the same name, basically. It depends on how it was brought forth, but Jacob, basically Reuben was Jacob's firstborn.
Jacob's his given name. Israel is his covenant name.
Covenant name. Reuben was the firstborn. What does the firstborn get? Double portion. He's in line, isn't he? What happened? Do you remember what happened to Reuben? He slept with his dad's concubine. Boy, I tell you, they get some really bad stuff going on here. He slept with her, and basically, Judah says, you know what? You're as unstable as water. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get this inheritance. How does it eventually end up? Who eventually ends up with this inheritance? Remember? Joseph? And actually his two sons, is it Ephraim and Manasseh, I think? They actually end up with that. But man, it's just unbelievable how this all works. I mean, you think of how these things happen, and they're not, as we've said before, it's not a coincidence how these things happen. What would have happened if things would have went right? Would Joseph and Ephraim and Manasseh been the birthright there? They wouldn't have. So he messes up. He's still in the picture as a strong and blessed tribe. If you look in 5:18 there, it says the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh had 44,760 men ready for military service. They waged against them. They were helped in fighting them, verse 20, and God handed the Hagarites and all their allies over to them because they cried out to him during the battle. He answered their prayers because they trusted in him. So he's still kind of in God's favor, isn't he? Even though he messed up, he's still in his favor. Does he remain that way? No, not really. It also talks of the Levitical tribe, the Levites. Who were they? In chapter 6. They were the priestly tribe, weren't they? Did they always do good? Nope. Not always. And yet, they were known as the priestly tribe. They came back. It tells me that God has great mercy and compassion on his people. I mean, honestly, would we have that same attitude towards someone that was faithful to us and then not, and then come back and faithful, I'm sorry, and then not? Would we have that same attitude? In our human thinking, you'll have to help me on this, Paul. What was the guy that was married to the prostitute? The guy that was, he was married to the prostitute. God told him to marry the prostitute. Was it Haggai? It's in the minor prophet there. But he basically told him to be married to this prostitute, so that he would understand exactly how he felt towards his people. I can't imagine that relationship. And yet that is exactly how God feels. And yet he's still there, isn't he? He's still there for them. He's still there for them. Even though they mess up royally, he's still there to help them realize that if you just follow me, if you just call on my name, I will help you.
Hosea.
Hosea. I knew it started with an H. But yes, you should read that sometime. Read Hosea and just see that is what God is feeling when we mess up. When we go our own way, as it says, there's a way that seems right unto man. We always have those ways, don't we? I think this is the right way to go. But you know what? If it's not God's way, it's not the right way to go. We have to continue to keep Him first and foremost. And when we do things, it's not that we're not going to have flat tires. It's not going to be a bed of roses. It's not going to be rainbows and unicorns. But He is going to be there for us. He's going to help us through those times. These guys still had to fight their enemies, didn't they? There was still bloodshed. There was still heartache. There was still a lot of stuff going on. But when they won, it was worth it because God was with them. Roger.
It kind of reminds us, we're repeat offenders.
Absolutely.
It's never just a one thing and then we're going to be good the rest of our life.
Mhm.
And it's hard.
It is. It is. And that's the same with Israel here. When they split, 10 tribes and the 2 tribes, when they split, they still, you'd think, well, the 2 tribes, they were the better ones. Surely they would be following, but they both ended up in exile, didn't they? Babylonian exile.
The two tribes finally proved to be worse than the pagans. They had never seen such evil.
Exactly. And it's like, why?
Is that Rehoboam or Jeroboam? I get those mixed up. The southern tribe was.
Northern tribe was Israel and the southern tribe was Judah, wasn't it? Yep.
Yeah, but who the leaders were? Rehoboam and Jeroboam?
Yeah. And I can't remember exactly which. I think Rehoboam was the southern, I believe. But isn't that the way we are, though? I mean, we can look at this and we can take this Old Testament and put it right on through to the New Testament. To us. To what God is trying to do with us. Wanting us to be faithful to Him. It's going to be tough. He tells us. He tells us in the New Testament what? Those that love God will suffer persecution. But the benefits of loving God are so much more. So much more. So we see all of these genealogies, and it's comes up to the where is it? Genealogy of Saul, the Benjamin in chapter 8, and this is where Saul came from. And it eventually, it goes through his whole deal. And how did, at first Saul was pretty good, wasn't he? I mean, God chose him from a good tribe. And he done well, didn't he? He defeated those armies that he went up against. But what happened? Once again, he basically turned his back on God.
He didn't seek His guidance or trust.
Exactly. Whose guidance did he seek?
His own.
His own guidance, and who else did he go to? Remember, he went to a medium. He went to a witch, a soothsayer. He didn't go to God, did he? Thought, I think I'll just handle this myself. I'm not getting the answers I like, so I'm going to go to someone that gives me the answers I like. Is that kind of what we think today? Isn't that what we like to do? I mean, I've got this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go to the people that agree with me. Not the people that might give me advice that would be good advice, but not what I wanted to hear. We want to hear what we want to hear. And I think that's what Saul wanted. And what happens? It goes bad, don't it? Everything goes south. He gets sick, delusional. What happens with the Philistines? The Philistines come up, and what happens there? Just before David comes on the scene, what are they saying? Philistines are taunting them, aren't they? Goliath is out there, he's taunting them day after day after day. This is not good. If Saul would have just followed God, they probably wouldn't have been in that position, would they? But then look again, David wouldn't have had a chance to get Goliath then, would he? Because this is where David comes on the scene. Samuel anointed David as a kid, a young guy. He anointed him. You're going to be the next king. But David is still a shepherd, right? His brothers are off to war. They're on the front line. They're getting, how would you say, humiliated by the giant. And then, of course, David comes on the scene. I think we mentioned it last week. How did David go forth? Running. He wasn't shy about this. Well, I don't know if I don't think I can do this. He went running forth. Why?
Confident.
Confidence in who? In God. Not in himself. Confidence in God. That God would make it right.
Plus he was angry that they would stand up, for themselves.
Because they're supposed to have God behind them, right? The whole battlefield, they should have had it done. You're letting him taunt you about the living God. And you're not taking action. So he does. He goes out. He does it. Of course, we know, one rock placed in the right place brought him down. And then Goliath's own sword was used to cut off his head.
So why do you have so many rocks?
Well, there is some, they say that he picked up 5 rocks, didn't he?
Yeah,
And they say that there was 4 other brothers of Goliath.
that's what I heard.
I don't know if we can confirm that for sure, but there's a possibility that maybe he was going with confidence that, you know what, if another one came out, I'm going to be ready for him. But it only took one, didn't it? Only one. With the confidence of God behind us, it only takes one.
Just because it only takes one doesn't mean we don't go in prepared.
Exactly. Because he was prepared. But he had confidence. When you go out to face a giant and you're running towards him, that's showing quite a bit of confidence. He's not skirting around the edges. He's not trying to find the weak spot. He's going face on to him. This is the beginning of Saul's downfall then. And the beginning of David's starting to become king. Of course, we could go into several weeks of just looking at David and how he went from here to being king with Jonathan and all that Saul was trying to do, chasing him down, trying to kill him. All that David was trying to do, soothing him with the harp. David just wanted to get along. But Saul would have nothing to do with it. And then eventually, what happens with Saul? What was Saul's demise? Who was chasing him? Who was in battle with him? The very ones at the day that David was out there and killed Goliath, the Philistines. They were after Saul. His sons were killed. And what did Saul do? on the battlefield? What was his? He knew it was over. What was his request? I think it was his armor bearer, I think, was there. What did he ask him? Take my sword and run me through. He didn't do it though, did he? He couldn't do it. This is king. This is my king. I'm not killing you. So what's Saul do? Turns the sword upon himself and falls on it. What an ending. What an ending. This is a king. And yet, because he didn't have God, to him there was nothing to live for, was there? But yet, he was chosen by God, wasn't he? He was chosen by him for Israel. So, at that, what was... I always remember the famous saying that as David was coming up and Saul was basically going down, all the people would say, Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s. And I'm always thinking, wow.
Wasn't that a song?
Yeah, the people would sing it.
They didn't say it, they sang it.
Yeah, they would sing that. Whenever David would come in. Saul killed his thousands, but David's killed his 10,000s. I'm thinking, man, that would make you feel pretty bad if you were Saul, wouldn't you? Because you were the first king. Andrew.
You know, oftentimes I think about when people claim that we cannot fall from grace, you know, the once saved, always saved teaching that we can't fall from grace, or otherwise it wasn't really grace to begin with, is their argument. But Saul did.
Yep.
Saul was in God's good graces.
Absolutely.
And he chose to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
you can lose that.
You can.
But it's on you, not God.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the common thing is that, well, nobody can pluck me out of God's hand. But we can sure step out of it. It's our decision.
Actually, we're the ones that pluck ourselves out.
We make the decision to not follow. All of these people, it wasn't just by happenstance. They chose, didn't they? They chose to follow another idol. Another God. They chose it. And then when they get down to rock bottom in that, sometimes they come back, don't they? But most of the time, if you look at it, it takes a whole generation, doesn't it? A generation before they realize, where are we at? We need to quit. We need to go back to God. And then they do. And God accepts them back. But then it seems like they go on a generation, maybe two, and then what happens? Grass looks greener over there, doesn't it? Boy, they're really doing well over there, and they're following that God. What was his name? Just like the children of Israel when they were out in the desert. What did they do? Complain, complain, complain. They had everything supplied for them. Their shoes never wore out. They didn't have to go to the laundromat all the time to wash their clothes. They had food. They had water. They had guidance. Pillar of fire, the cloud. And what did they do? Complain. We do the same thing, don't we? We do the same thing. How important is it to get our head around God needs to be number one and no other? No other. Nothing in our life should take the place of God. Whether it be a job, whether it be recreation, anything. If it takes the place of God, we're on this downward spiral. Because that's what happened here. The children of Israel, they went with other gods. They went with other tribes. The women were better looking over there, so let's intermarry. All of this stuff, God had laid down the laws for them. They knew them, but yet they made the conscientious decision that I'm just not going to follow that. I'm going to do it my way. And yet, our ways do not work, do they? Let's turn over to Philippians chapter 2. I know this is not in Chronicles, but this gives us a good idea how we can apply this to our lives by looking at something in the New Testament. Philippians 2. Starting in verse 12. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now how much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. Now what does that tell us right there? The first line. What are we to do? Obey. What were the children of Israel to do? All they had to do was what? Obey. And what would happen? God would be with us. He'll work it out in you. He's talking to us today in this verse. As you have always obeyed. Not only in my presence, but how much more in my absence. We don't have Jesus right here, do we? We don't have the apostles right here that we say, wow. But we have God all around us. And we know that he is asking us to obey his commands, whatever they might be. If you turn back to Ephesians chapter 2. Starting in verse 8. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. God has prepared us already to do all of his good works. It's not like he's going to call us and then say, well, now you're going to have to figure that out yourself. He's already prepared us for what is ahead if we just comply to him. Be moldable. Well, I think I'll stop there because we're out of time here before it gets too late. But keep that in mind as we continue to read. We're going to look in chapter 10 probably next week and see what else we can pull out of that in order to apply to our lives today through what they were going through at that time. Thanks for all your comments. We'll see you next week.